Hello, everybody, and welcome to After 83 Weeks. My name is Christy Olson, and I know exactly why you are here. You listened to this week's 83 Weeks with Eric Bischoff and heard all those wonderful, insightful questions from the AdFreeShows Top Guys, and you thought to yourself, hey, I've got a cue or two for one Eric Bischoff. Well, you came to the right place. We are going to get all your questions answered tonight, talk about Eric's thoughts on the latest wrestling news, and just have us a little After 83 Weeks party. So say hello to the crew, everybody. Welcome you all from all around the world live. And there's these guys, Adam Woods, Steve Kaufman, and the man of the hour. I can never get my which way right. There he is. Looking good. Howdy, partner, Mr. Eric Bischoff.
Good evening, ma'am.
Oh, I love this. So rocking a certain look tonight. I have to say it's a real vibe. We're digging it. Looks good on you. And it's kind of reminiscent of a friend of yours. We got to know why you're rocking this hat tonight.
Well, I haven't reached out to Jim personally, but I just want to pay homage to my buddy. You know, kind of live vicariously through him right now. Just give him a nod for going through what he's going through and being a tough-ass son of a bitch about it.
Yeah. He announced on his podcast this week that he'll be undergoing some radiation, taking a little bit of time away from the AEW commentary booth. Adam Page is going to step in. Maybe Eric Bischoff step in at some point in time, too, if they need a hand. Or
I wouldn't bet any money on that.
No. You did mention this week that you had left a voicemail or two for one Tony Khan. Maybe we should kick this off with a little update on your feud, Eric, your fiery feud with Tony Khan. Have you heard from him?
No, I think he's mad.
Oh, no.
He's angry. That's okay.
Angry around the holidays, though? I mean, is that not a good vibe to have?
One more time.
Yeah, that's not a good vibe to have.
You should have been on the best part of the show before we went live. And Adam suggested that perhaps I should see the same dentist as Kevin Dunn, which I take very offensively.
I thought you said that he had beautiful teeth.
Kevin, I just want to remind you, Kevin, I can help you find him on social media.
Just gonna put his lower third up real fast.
Nice.
Yeah.
Let everybody
Anyone
know.
who's confused, just look for a photo of one Kevin Dunn. And that would include everybody who has joined us here live tonight. Big shout out to everybody who subscribed on the 83 Weeks channel. We're live on YouTube. We're live on Ad-Free Shows, Twitter, Facebook, everywhere that you love 83 Weeks. We are loving you back tonight. And everybody's in the chat already. I want to say hi to Josh and Ibzon, Ryan, Justin, Mick, Mac, our buddy, Aaron. Everybody's coming around. So good to see you all tonight. Already have their questions rolling for you, Mr. Eric. Let's start off with a little one since we were just talking about the holidays. Here's a nice warm fuzzy for us. Ibzon wants to know, with the holidays coming around, what is the best present that your mom and dad ever gave you? Maybe something that you hold dearly onto today.
Oh, this is going to show my age. But I got a 22 caliber pellet rifle. You had to pump it up by hand. And I got that when I was about 8. And my dad used to let me take it out hunting with him. And I still have it to this day. It's probably one of the only gifts that I still have to this day.
I'll make the reference. You'll shoot your eye out.
Kid, yeah.
It was a different.
Oh, different. It wasn't. It was. I believe that was the Red Rover.
Red Rider BB gun.
Well, it wasn't quite that, but yeah.
Shucks.
Close enough. Oh, well, thank you for sharing that, Eric. And while we're on you talking about your days of growing up, Spade Racing would like to know, and he says, be honest, Eric, how old were you when you had your very first PBR?
Probably 13, maybe 12. It was the summer between the time I was 12 and the time I was 13. So it would have been right after. I would have been 13.
Any good story? You were, down by the river with your bros or trying to get up some liquid courage, ask out a girl. There's got to be something juicy here.
No, nothing really juicy. We used to camp out. We brought our tents out. We found a little section of woods, and there was one particular area that we went that had a creek running through it, and there'd be crawfish in there. So we'd go down there with our flashlights and catch crawfish and bring them back to the camp, as it was, and grill crawfish over a campfire. Doesn't that sound just like Boy Scout shit? But it's true.
Also, 12 or 13 is a very honest answer about beer. A lot of people like to have revisionist history about like, oh, I was 25. It was at a wedding.
No, you asked me how was I when I had a PBR. If the question would have been, how old were you when you had your first straight shot of whiskey? I would say I would have been 8, maybe 9. That's the truth.
Someone trying to put you to sleep?
No. But when my parents would have friends over or family were to come over, and cocktails were to be had, it didn't happen very often. But friends, visitors, whatever, family would come over to the house, and I would be the bartender. I would be the bartender, and I learned how to mix drinks the way my parents liked them, and I could mix basic drinks, and I was kind of a little bartender. And then after about 2 hours of that, after everybody else was starting to loosen up in the other room, I'd go back in the kitchen when I was a bartender and sneak a little Canadian club.
Wow. That's a cool party trick for your parents. Like, look at the kid over here mixing drinks and what have you.
Let's take him to the basement and see if he falls down the stairs. Again.
That was the first one.
I can just picture little Eric flipping bottles, setting stuff on fire, entertaining as he mixes drinks.
Oh, I was doing that Tom Cruise shit long before Tommy was a gleam in his mother's eye.
Well, it's a lower center of gravity. You can do way more tricks that way.
This is true shit, right? And you're so short, nobody can see if you fuck it up because it keeps
close.
Some definite advantages, which I kind of want to ask. Obviously, you're doing the ode to JR, right? So, do you have a favorite JR memory, especially during the WCW run?
Oh,
I mean, not like an incident, but I remember when I first started working for JR, when I first came to WCW, I used to watch him get angry and it would make me laugh because he's so animated when he gets pissed off and he gets so into it, but didn't quite take it serious. So I was just like, it was funny. And he was right about stuff. It's just the way when Jim gets on a roll, I don't care if he's bitching, I don't care if he's right about bitching or wrong about bitching, it makes me laugh. It's just funny. You gotta be in a room with him when he gets on a roll. A couple of Moscow mules, get him on a subject that gets him irritated, and just watch him go.
The Grill and JR podcast has plenty of red ass JR, as
Yes,
it's known.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. And honestly, if you haven't listened to it, you need to listen to it because nobody gets pissed off like JR.
By God.
well, something else that I gave a listen to today, Eric, was your appearance on Renee Paquette's podcast, Oral Sessions. You did an interview with her that just came out today. I've already gave it a little listen, and really fun to hear you guys sitting down and kind of sharing your shared experiences with being in production meetings and that kind of thing. I suggest everybody go and give it a listen. But you revealed on Renee's show that what you're working on right now, and you've teased this to us, but we couldn't get it out of you. So thank you, Renee. But what you're working on right now, non-wrestling related, is in the gaming world. And I'm wondering if there's any more that you can elaborate on that for us.
It's a project I've been working on for about a little over a year. My partner in that project is a guy by the name of Tom DeShanes. I've had Tom on our Patreon channel over at AdFreeShows.com. Tom is a Shakespearean scholar, a Harvard graduate. He's written several highly acclaimed books on Shakespeare's characters and their evolution or lack thereof. He makes documentaries. And he's a game designer. Oh yeah, there's that. he came out with a board game called Quest for the Antidote, and it's sold through, I think, Upper Deck as one of the board games, and it's one of the first and maybe only that I'm aware of, at least, board games that Upper Deck distributes that they didn't produce in-house or create in-house. He's a really, really smart dude, and he's a huge gamer. He's also a massive wrestling fan, and in one of my first conversations with him, before I knew much about Tom, he said, yeah, he told me he was a Harvard graduate, told me about his background, and then he told me about how he got into literature and Shakespeare and Greek mythology. And basically it's because he was a wrestling fan during the NWO era when he was like 14, 15 years old. And that left such an impression on him that he began to become interested in characters and literature and the way stories are constructed. And off he went as a highly regarded Harvard graduate that was set on this path because of the NWO. So for all you people who thought that we were like trashing society and ruining the culture, take that. Thank you, John.
Wow, that's awesome. So is this something that you've been interested in, that you were wanting to kind of learn about the world of gaming, or are you just putting some money in, hoping to get some more money out? What's the motivation?
I like to learn new stuff. I get bored doing the same things over and over again, for the most part. And anytime I get an opportunity to kind of step into the world of entertainment, which gaming clearly is, but in a way that's different than what I've already done, because I like to learn shit. And don't get me wrong, not that I don't enjoy, doing TV when I have an opportunity to do it a couple of times a year. I have fun doing it, but hard to get passionate about it. It's more like going and visiting old friends than it is anything else. But gaming, there's a lot to learn. I mean, it's a whole different universe. It's weird. It's so fascinating. So yeah, I've been interested in doing it. After Tom and I got to know each other, after a while, we started bouncing ideas off of each other, and I've had a little bit of exposure into the world of gaming over the last 20 years or so, 10 years. So I thought, hey, let's come up with an idea, and we did. And it's final testing phases right now to make sure that the game design and the gameplay and the strategies are all where they should be. But that's about all I can talk about. It's been a long-term project. I have no idea when it's going to launch. Maybe even if it's going to launch. We're still in the development phase, but I hope so. It's fun.
Yeah.
It sounds fun.
Well, it's exciting. Yeah. We look forward to hearing about it along the way.
Cool. Well, believe me, if it comes to fruition, you'll be hearing about it until you're sick.
Yes.
I love that.
All three of you will show up to the show already drunk because you know what you're going to have to sit through for an hour.
That is not a problem. We are super grateful for everybody out there who's running in these super chats right now. Thank you to all of you. I want to touch on one here from William Schaefer. He said, Eric, you were one of my heroes growing up. I loved how you grew the wrestling business. I also love your honesty on the topics discussed here. That's right. No BS with this guy.
No BS here. No bullshit. We don't do that here.
Speaking of the chat, RJ Krasinski, top guy RJ Krasinski, I should mention, wants to know if you got to see Andrade Cody Rhodes from last night.
Nah.
Yes.
Nothing. Not interested.
Tables on fire? Not even enough to capture your attention?
I'm not being critical of it. I mean, since I didn't see it, I may love it. Who knows if I would have watched it? I don't know. Because I didn't. But the reason I didn't was because there's just nothing going on that makes me go, there's something different. There's a chance to grow the audience. It's just good wrestling, great wrestling, if you will. Just doesn't do it.
Okay. Fair.
Not that I won't drop in. If I hear about something that sounds interesting and sounds like it could be different, or if I get a sense that there's some build towards a well-crafted story, I'll jump in, man. I'll jump in first in a heartbeat. There's a lot of great talent that I love watching on television if they've got a great story.
Yes. Well, speaking of talent, right? They say that imitation is the most sincere form of flattery, right? I believe, I believe Steve might have something queued up that I think you will love, Eric Bischoff. I loved it. I think Christy loved it too. Steve, do you have that clip?
I will have that clip. Sorry,
Oh.
you're.
So this is really fun. Yeah, let's jump into this now, Eric. This what you're gonna see is I'll just give you a little tease. This is an actor, and he's making a pitch, and that's all I'll tell you for now.
All right.
Hello, everybody. It's not the holidays, but 'tis always a season to be surprised. Especially now Chris Hemsworth is going to be playing Hulk Hogan. Great casting. But forget about the Pontiac Silverdome, Andre the Giant, WrestleMania 6, Ultimate Warrior. Forget about all those things that you've always heard about. See, what I really want to know is this movie going to include the black and white? You remember when, for 83 weeks, Hollywood Hogan and what? Kicked Vince's ass in the ratings with WCW Nitro. Picture it. The NWO takes over Netflix. We will single-handedly change the industry once more. It should have been ours from the very beginning, but we got cheated out of it. Not this time. Not this time. Definitely not this time. You see this face? This one right here? I'm ready to go. I've cleared my Monday nights. I've got the skill set. I know that hindsight is 20/20. And context is king. I'm 5'10". I'm 185 pounds. And that's not a work. And I know that a Hulk Hogan movie would not be complete without Eric Bischoff. Because after all, with me, 'tis always the season. Be surprised.
Gonna mute it there so we don't get claimed on the music.
Woo! That is Sam Benjamin. He's originally from the UK. He just landed here in LA. He's got his green card, Eric, and he is ready to be cast in the biopic as one Eric Bischoff. What do you say?
Screw the Hulk Hogan biopic. Let's do the Eric Bischoff biopic. That was awesome. And it even more impressed that he's from the UK because he has no accent. And that's
right?
Cool. I want to learn how people do that. I don't want to learn how to do it myself, but I want to learn how people do that. It's fascinating to me. Linguistics. It's a weird thing. I'd like to know more about it. But no, that was awesome. And from your digital keyboard to God's ear, let's hope that movie gets made and we won't forget you.
That's right. Awesome. Well, I know that is going to absolutely make Sam's day. So thanks for giving that a look. And while we're kind of on it, you said there, if it gets made, any updates on the biopic? Obviously, there's a lot going on in Hollywood right now. You got nothing for us, EB?
Nothing. I got nothing.
Oh, well, good thing you got the video games going.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's that. There's a couple other things, but I'm not going to throw them out there because then you're just going to be poking me every freaking week for more information. I feel like a pincushion after sitting through these shows with you all this time.
I feel like we just backdoor piloted a whole Eric Bischoff movie.
Yeah.
Just here and now on this feed.
Yeah.
Me and AdFreeShows are cut into it already. I don't know if you know this.
You're good.
Oh, well, that was fun. And I'm going down my list of things to bother you about. There's just one more, Eric. We got a great tease on 83 Weeks this week. Should we call it a teasehausen? From one fabulous host, Miss Lauren Hausen, had this really weird sort of tease at the end of 83 Weeks Hausen about something Hausen. What the Hausen?
Oh man, I'm sorry.
Feeling as confused as I feel. What are we talking about?
Danhausen.
Danhausen.
Well, Lauren Yaffe at the end of this week's 83 Weeks implied that there's some funhousing upcoming. And that could be a one.
Why do you guys know more about the podcast that's coming up this week than I do? I don't know what the hell you're talking about.
So the Locked and Loaded.
Honestly, God.
I thought about asking Lauren to join us tonight. I guess we should have done that.
Holy shit, you guys.
Have you
Making
seen
fun of my teeth?
There's an indie wrestler named Danhausen. He's on Ring of Honor. Have you seen his work at all?
Yes.
Okay. That was the alleged tease that many have picked up on from this week's main feed episode, that Ad-Free might be doing stuff with Danhausen.
And it sounded like you might be involved. I mean, I guess, you know.
I don't. I honestly, not that I know of.
Right. Well, we'll keep you all updated, Hausen, on that one.
Yeah, 100%.
But then again, it could be a surprise.
Absolutely.
I just got to cover my bet. I feel like a real asshole if all of a sudden he's booked for the show and I don't know about it.
Eric, I'm pretty sure you're not involved. I'll say that.
Okay, good.
Eric, do you have any good Gordon Soley stories?
Again, no specific event or anything like that. But again, in a lot of my impressions, the ones that are the strongest are the ones that I, kind of got when I first got to WCW, because everything was so big and so new and so different than what I've been used to. And when I first started work, I did a lot of post-productions, stand-ups, interviews, that kind of stuff, ins and outs, a little bit of play-by-play. And Gordon Soley was working for WCW at the time. And he'd come in, he lived out in Florida, and he'd come in and do the same thing I do, work for a day or two, probably spend the night at the Omni, finish up your day of work, and then catch his flight back to Florida. It's kind of my schedule when I lived in Minnesota when I first started. So on those nights when Gordon and I were both in post-production together and we were both spending the night over at the Omni Hotel at the CNN Center, there was an English pub that was inside of the CNN Center. I don't remember the name of it. I think it was called King's or something like that. And after work, I'd go over there, and 9 times out of 10, Gordon had already been there for an hour or two, because I was usually one of the last ones out, low man on the totem pole kind of thing. And I'd go over to that pub and I'd sit there with Gordon and just listen to him tell stories and smoke cigarettes and drink whiskey or whatever he drank. I don't remember. And there's just something about, that voice he had, which is just, he could be telling you how to put some IKEA furniture together and it would be really interesting, just because his voice and his storytelling. And that's what I remember about Gordon Soley.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love hearing, the classic commentators of my youth, just in a light, because unfortunately, Gordon Soley is not here to have a podcast and what have you, what that could have been like. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Good question. I liked it.
Josh Eternal, who you and I have been emailing about on the DL, he wants to know if you've ever crossed paths with Eric Embry or Skander Akbar.
No. Eric Embry, I'm going to say possibly, if he would have been involved in the Super Clash 3 kind of pay-per-view that Vern Gagne and Jerry Jarrett and Von Erickson, everybody, tried to pull off. He may have been there then. I kind of think so, but I'm not sure that we ever even spoke or, introduced. I was just the guy putting up the set, so I don't think we ever talked.
How great was the backstage environment at Super Clash?
It's pretty cool.
We're not great, yeah.
I was still new. I'd only been in the business for 2 years, I think, if that. So it was all still kind of cool and kind of new to me. And again, realize that, I started in AWA in 87. It wasn't until, I think, 89 when Vern would kind of let me get smartened up just by being, in the working area, while they're cutting promos and directing and things like that. It's like, oh, okay. It took me a year and a half for him to allow me to get officially smartened up. So for me, at that time, everything was still new to me, and I was a fan. just like everybody else that is a big fan that would love to have a job in professional wrestling when you're in your 20s or 30s. But being backstage, it was disorganized, as you would expect it to be. You've got 40 different wrestlers there from all parts of the country who don't work for really any one person in that situation. It was nuts, but it was really cool for me because I got to see Kerry Von Erich. I'd only heard about Kerry Von Erich. Got to work with him a little bit. That was really cool. I dug it.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I dig this name of one of our live chatters here, Pickles and Hookers, who wants to know if you answer questions in the YouTube live chat. And that's exactly right, Pickles and Hookers. You just put your question right in there where you typed that, and we will get Eric to answer it for you. And, a great name is always a good way to catch your eye.
Did you say Pimples and Hookers?
Pickles, yes.
Pickles. I heard pimples.
Is that less appealing? Less appealing.
That's a yin and a yang if I've ever heard one.
Fetish site?
We need to buy that URL right now so we can jump on it. Speaking of
probably already an OnlyFans.
Speaking of super chats, resident shitster Micmac has two for us. First one, where were you on July 20th, 1969? Also, Steve wants you to know that he produces the Ric Flair podcast.
Oh, yeah, we've been on for 28 minutes and he hasn't mentioned it yet. Well, good job, Steve.
We're reading him off.
Where was I on that day? I'm not even sure where I was yesterday. I know I lived in Pittsburgh at the time. It was the summer of '69. What a year. Anyway. That's all I remember.
Knowing Micmac, I feel like he's leading off to something.
Yeah.
It's a little coy. He got his first real 6-string, bought it at the 5 and Dime.
Yeah. I think so.
I know, I'm like trying to run through the lyrics.
Played it till his fingers bled.
Shout out to Brian Adams, right?
John Collins.
Hey, Steve, I've been meaning to ask you. Thanks, everybody, for reminding me. But how is Ric Flair's podcast going?
Ric Flair's podcast is going great. We're on week 3 right now. We record on Mondays and then we release on Wednesdays.
So, Madden and Flair, how's that chemistry going?
That chemistry is, I don't want to say shockingly good, but it's very good because Rick has fallen into the groove of being interviewed weekly by Madden, and he's very comfortable with John Madden. Sorry, Mark Madden. Also John Madden, probably, but Mark Madden.
Very cool. I got to give that a listen. I've listened to clips of it, but I just haven't had time to sit down and listen to other people's podcasts. But I'm going to check that out because I think that show has the potential of being huge. As we know, it takes a couple months for people to really kind of get their chemistry fine-tuned. And then once you do, it just takes off. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to drop in and check it out. I have very high hopes for that podcast.
Thank you. I think they're finding a groove right now with the question and answer stuff, which is good because now we can move into possibly guests or watch-alongs or whatever else. Ooh. We'll get everybody revving. I have no idea if that'll actually happen, but everything.
Mark is smart.
Oh yeah.
Because I told Mark when I heard about it, I said the only thing that's going to be curious and fun to watch is how those two personalities work, because Mark is incredibly intelligent. One of the smartest people I've been around. And he's so quick and he's so confident in the way he presents his position. He's a very strong personality. And so is Rick in a different way. But Rick can be a handful. So I'm going to have fun watching those two kind of eventually test each other's boundaries a little bit, because that'll happen naturally and it'll be fun and they'll have fun doing it. But that's when it's going to get good.
As a producer, I'm happy they haven't reached a boundary yet, but I do know that it's coming and that. You need it to happen.
What? Hopefully it'll happen. A little bit here, a little bit there. It's not going to be like over the top at each other's throats kind of shit, because that gets tiresome. At that level. But if you have a good kind of back and forth, kind of like a good tennis match, not kill shots, but just fun volleys, that'll be fun.
So a lot of people in the chat have brought up that July 20th, 1969 was the moon landing. So
Oh,
Mac's
yeah.
question was, where were you for the moon landing?
Yeah, well, like I fucking remember when the moon was. You know, about a week after it happened, I probably would have not been able to tell you. Yeah. I mean, I think it's cool they landed on the moon. And now that I know that, I remember exactly where I was. I was in the family room of my parents' house on that television. My parents were out that evening. My grandmother was watching us. She was upstairs. And my friend Gary Wilkins and I were downstairs. And we were watching the moon landing stuff. And it was after the moon landing, all of a sudden, because I was downstairs, I hear this boom, this big crash. And by the way, my grandmother did not like me at all. It was just, there was something about me. I don't say she hated me, but she might as well have. Anyway, I hear this big crash. I go running up the stairs because I knew my grandmother was up there. And as soon as I come up the stairs, I could see she had been sitting in a swivel rocking chair that had 3 legs. It was not the most expensive or well-constructed rocking chair. But she had, whatever, probably trying to get up, she had flipped over backwards. And when I came upstairs, all I saw was her feet sticking up like the Wicked Witch of the West. It was crazy. And for a brief moment, I stopped and chuckled before I helped her up. I know that makes me an evil child, but she worked hard for that.
See, that's a great memory. And then you went and had a shot of whiskey afterward.
No, I was way past whiskey. I was into the PBR by then, I think.
There you go.
I was 14. That's way past. I was a veteran by then.
Which, by the way, I don't know if you've heard, Eric, but there has been a contingency of people that don't believe that the moon landing happened, or maybe that the Earth is flat. What do you think of said people? Do you have a dog in the hunt either way?
I don't. And not to get heavy here, but I don't judge people for what they like or don't like or do or don't do. It's not my job. I learned a long time ago, don't judge lest you be judged. And I prefer just to let people do whatever the fuck they want. And I prefer that they let me do the same. And I'm all good with whatever anybody's into. Just be cool.
Amen.
Not my thing, judging people. Now, would I probably go to a meeting with 5 or 10 of them to hang out for an evening? No.
Not so much.
Just because I can't, there's too many rabbit holes that you can let yourself go down if you decide to be a rabbit hole goer down there. There's too many weird shit, too many weird conspiracies, and some of them maybe aren't conspiracies. I don't know. As crazy as everything is right now, I believe everything and anything. Nothing surprises me anymore. So
okay.
This gives us
let's get to this one from John Collins. Oh
yes.
Yeah, and then pickles and hookers.
Well,
John Collins wants to know, Eric, always. But first, John Collins says, I enjoy your program. Why aren't people in the professional wrestling podcast game more realistic and honest, analytical the way you are, as opposed to hype and BS? Ooh, compliment.
Because I'm a very special person. That's it. I don't know. Everybody's got their own style. Not everybody. I mean, more people listen to Bruce Pritchard's show because Bruce Pritchard's got great stories. I mean, Bruce has been there and seen it, firsthand, up close, and he's got a great retention. He remembers the little details of those stories, and as a result, Bruce's podcast blows all of ours away because people like stories. Well, some people like the behind the business, behind the camera kind of stuff, the business of the wrestling business stuff. Well, those people go to my podcast. Jim's got a little bit of both, and he's fun to listen, get pissed off. So each, Arn he's in the ring and he's seen a lot and done a lot. So each one of our podcasts have its own kind of tone and tenor. Same with Jeff's, Kurt's, and Kurt's the only gold medalist we have. And there are some people that have podcasts that are promoting and shilling and distorting truth and all kinds of other stuff. But to each their own, man.
And while we are
$99 a month on whatever you want.
Yeah, well, we are shilling. I feel like this is kind of an honest one. If you guys are, if you're watching us on the 83 Weeks YouTube channel and you're subscribed to all the individual podcasts on Apple Podcasts, go and check out ad-free shows. There are thousands and thousands and thousands of different kinds of content with all different kinds of people that you want to hear from. And it's really incredible. And if you just want more of what Eric does, it's there at Ad-Free Shows. So make sure you check that out. And also a little tidbit we haven't mentioned yet, but the last 10 about or so minutes of this show are just for our Ad-Free Shows Top Guys and other friends over there. So it's just another reason. And you got about, 13 minutes to go over there and sign on up. So
you'll have fun. It's a fun place to hang out.
I thought that was Christy shilling for the content that she made with JBL that she had to cut the last podcast short for. But yeah, well,
that went over good too. We got Al Snow coming up, But back to pickles and hookers. Got a great question in. They say the night when Hall and Bash attacked the wrestlers in the back and the show got delayed. Did you guys scramble to make matches on the fly, or did you guys delay the show to let the backstage scene sink in? What was going on there?
I think we're talking about the episode that took place at the Disney MGM Studios outside in 96, early summer, midsummer, midsummer 96. Is this where Ray got lawn darted? Is that the scene we're talking about?
That's what everybody
that whole thing was created to appear to be a legitimate takeover, crash the signal, shut down the action in the ring, let the wrestlers break character. All of the things you would never see at any other time. Would you see that or expect to see that? But it was all pretty well planned and orchestrated, if that was the question.
Real quick about believing or not believing. We have a good question from Navy 418, which is great job on your TEDx. What is your take on Andy Kaufman? He only wanted real reactions from his audience, good or bad. Wrestling Woman sure got results.
I mean, it was a different thing, right? We're still talking about it today, so it was obviously cool. It brought a lot of attention to the wrestling business, created some real controversy. There was a lot of did he or didn't he? I mean, I still like going back and watching it because it was so believable, yet unbelievable. Andy Kaufman, think about that. Think about that hard. Who takes that seriously? Nobody, but it was done so well. And you got the sense that Andy was just batshit crazy, so it could be real. And they found that sweet spot of this angle, this storyline. See, this was really a storyline now. What we watch on television for most part is those are just angles. Shoot a promo, have a confrontation, do something this week, and we're going to have a 2-week program, and we're going to have a match. That's considered basically a storyline in today's world. It's not a storyline. It's just an angle that ends with a match. It's the same stuff that wrestling's been doing since the 60s. It's sick. Especially when the audience is so sophisticated now. They're used to seeing really, really well-crafted stories. Some of the stuff that's on Hulu and Netflix and Amazon Prime. And I mean, there's some amazing original content out there, scripted content, that is fantastic. And that's what the audience is getting used to. But wrestling hasn't caught up to that. They're still doing wrestling angles called storylines. How did we get off on that?
Andy Kaufman.
Andy Kaufman, there. Felt like 3 days ago. I'm sorry.
And your TEDx talk is creeping up on 500,000 views there, Eric.
Yeah, that was fun. I had fun doing that. It was different. I'd never done anything like that before, so it was fun.
You know what's wild? Wouldn't Andy Kaufman be considered a bit of a pioneer because of all the intergender wrestling that has kind of permeated the wrestling landscape over the last, I'd say 5, maybe even 10 years? Like Andy Kaufman being the intergender champion is kind of a pioneer. And I don't know if you guys know the story of Andy wanting to get an ambulance to get him after the pile driver. And Lawler didn't want to pay for it. So Andy kind of had to mumble, hey, I'll pay for it. No worries. And that was, and it got more heat. So Andy Kaufman is a genius.
See, I I believe every syllable of that story because Jerry is that cheap.
He spent all of his money on Coca-Cola relics, so there you go.
No, he's probably got, as they say, you've heard it a million times, the first dollar he ever made. And I applaud him for that, by the way. I kind of wish I would have been a lot more like that when I was, making really good money. But no, I think he is. Andy Kaufman, in many ways, is a pioneer. And what I find magical about it, why I still like going back and watching it from time to time, is the psychology of it all. How did he get the audience to kind of believe this was a legit thing? Because he believed it. He, I guess, as a method actor, I'm guessing, I don't know that, believed the story that he was telling with Lawler was real. And because he was so good at it, so did everybody else, or at least a good proportion of people. Or at the very least, they were curious to see if it was real or not, which is kind of half-ass believing it. It's amazing.
I don't want to misquote it, but there was a promoter who sent a telegram to Jerry Lawler after the Letterman segment, who said, like, "Oh, good for you, slapping the taste out of that Hollywood guy." That even that promoter got fooled. I don't want to misquote who that promoter was.
That's awesome. It's awesome.
Let me check the chat here.
Yeah, Daniel Brewer's got a question. This is a good one, Eric. How did your time in wrestling affect your non-wrestling TV projects? Daniel says he loved the biker show that you did.
It really didn't. It wasn't a big issue. At the time I was talent. At the time of the biker show, the Discovery show he's referring to, I was in TNA. So was Jason Hervey. We were both working together in TNA, and we were working together on our other stuff. So there were a lot of times when, we couldn't be in the same place at the same time. So if there was something that required one of us on site that the other one didn't have to be on site for, we split duties. So Jason could be doing one thing, I could be doing another. So it was manageable. It wasn't a big issue.
Was there anything that you had worked on specifically in the wrestling world, or anything you learned about storytelling, characters, anything like that, that you kind of carried over into your reality TV production?
No, I think the reverse would be true, actually.
Oh.
Working in reality, you learn how to structure stories much better. You have to.
Yeah.
Working with some of the talent. It was fun working on Hulk Hogan's Celebrity Championship Wrestling, the show we did for CMT, because in that case, for the most part, we were working with actors and actresses, right? So directing actors and actresses to do something that they've never done before is really kind of fun, because they have so much natural ability. They learn so quickly, so you could direct them in such a great way, and it doesn't take 22 cuts. You know what I mean? You can really get there with quality material, and that was fun. And I tried to bring some of that into, the Aces and Eights story is probably the best example I can give you of that time. That story, there was a lot of what I'd learned in reality in just a different way of blocking out or formatting reality, that I was beginning to think about how to apply that to wrestling to tell better stories. So, yeah, I would say it was the reverse.
Interesting.
Josh Eternal in the chat wants to know, and I know you don't love hypotheticals, but who wins in a shoot fight? Haku or Mike Tyson?
Tyson. Quick.
Yeah. I think
quick takedown.
I think if it goes any distance, Haku can have the advantage. But
it
Tyson
wouldn't go any distance. It would go. Okay, let's hit a mental stopwatch. 3, 2, 1. Boom, 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 boom. That's how long that would last.
Which, if this theoretical match were to take place, or fight were to take place, would it happen in a 6-sided ring?
Oh.
I would hope not. I would hope not, because it would detract from the legitimacy and the spectacle. No, I would hope. I would pray.
I think Adam Woods angling for a job at Triller. That's what it sounds like.
Apparently.
Good luck. Good luck.
Just saying.
Hold on. Why is I gonna straighten up my hat here? The wind's gonna blow it right off my head. It is windy out here. Holy crap! We've had like 50-mile-an-hour winds this week. It's been about 2 weeks. It's been windy as hell, but it's 65 degrees in Wyoming.
Oh, I was going to ask if you maybe had a little space heater down there keeping your tootsies warm.
I had the windows open before I came in here because it was getting warm in here. Is that crazy?
I think the hat probably doesn't help, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it holds a lot of. Yeah, hats hold a lot of heat.
In many ways. Oh,
Many ways.
that was
I see
deep,
what you
Eric.
did there.
Deep.
Nick H was actually one of our first super chatters. I may not be able to find it, but he wants to know, and I know we're not going to get a lot of detail because you've done a lot of detail, and I can forward you the clip of firing the honky tonk man. Just in broad terms, the day you fired the honky tonk man. Nick H wants to know.
Wants to know what? The day I fired honky tonk man, I fired him. What does he want to know about it?
I believe it was on the way Honky tells it is that he was on a loading dock and didn't want to lose, and you were telling him that he was on, he wasn't even on a contract, and he wanted a contract to lose, and you told him,
okay,
no, I don't want you on the TV show.
So he wants to know how I felt about it, or I'll just assume that's a question.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was doing the guy a favor. This is not somebody I really wanted on the roster, number one. I didn't see a lot of value in him, number two. But that was okay on the basis under which I hired him, right? No contract, per night basis. Sure, we can find a way to utilize that character. I'm not saying it didn't have any value, but it wasn't like – it was like at the bottom of the list, maybe a third of the way up the list, to be generous. I thought I was doing the guy a favor. I really did. And then, I turned around and it seems like, 2 days later, I'm playing hardball with a guy that I'm not sure I want to waste 3 minutes talking to. So it was fun for me because it was a non-stressful decision. It took me seconds to determine how I was going to handle the situation. There was such little stress in it that it actually was pleasurable. It's like I can't explain it, but it was fun. And I still like telling that story. He's got his own version of it, naturally, like everybody does. But
Of course.
I remember it specifically.
Which, in fact, I mean, Honky Tonk hasn't taken a wrestling bump since then, so thank you, Eric, for that.
I hope he doesn't take a bump. We'll never see him again. Have you seen him lately?
Honky Tonk.
He's got long hair. He's got long hair. Really long hair.
He's got a lot more than that.
Yeah, Willie Nelson-esque. Less like
he's got a whole other body following him around.
That too. I was going to mention that, but yeah, well, I'm a portly gentleman myself, so can't throw stones.
Well, guys, we're going to take one more question here from our 83 Weeks YouTube channel listeners, and then we will be exclusively on ad-free shows for the next 10 minutes. So this one comes from Kennedy Williams, who's wondering, why do so many people still fundamentally misunderstand the finger poke storyline? Kennedy says, it made sense in character and everyone still talks about it. So Kennedy's confused. Do you understand why people don't get it?
I think it's not a question of whether people get it or not. I think people just like to have shit to argue over. It's the nature of social media, I guess. It's probably the only reason that subject matter comes up on a regular basis is because every time that time of year comes around and it's the whatever 75th anniversary of the finger poke of doom, somewhere 75 years or 50 years from now, whatever it's going to be, people will be arguing over that shit, just not because they really care, just because they like to argue.
Yeah, we can't blame him. Well, love that, Eric. Thank you so much. We got some great questions coming up here from our top guys, Eddie, and some others. So we're going to get to those exclusively on ad-free shows. Big thanks to everybody who's joined us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and everywhere from all around the world. We do this at 5 p.m. Pacific time on Thursdays, breaking down the latest 83 weeks. So thank you so much for joining us. And everybody, stay tuned. Ad-free shows, folks. We will be back in about 10 seconds with more with Eric Bischoff.